Welcome! Hello! We are here I am here with Bethany, who is.
Our events coordinator at Cure.
What do you do?
Well, Karina, that's a great question. I plan and implement all of the events that Cure International does from this office.
Yay! All right, so we wanted to make this really quick video for you guys, just talking about tips about events from our experiences. So yeah, we just have a couple of questions, so I'll just jump right in to the first question. So first is, what is your philosophy on events? Specifically in terms of Cure U, how would you characterize them?
So I think my philosophy in events is that events, no matter what the event is, the event should always have a clear and identified purpose. And for the purpose of Cure, we typically have two types of events. So the first could be a fundraising event, and the second is a primarily awareness-driven event. So so whenever we go into any event, we try to identify which one of those two categories the event's going to fall within, and that helps to shape the way that we then interact with our audience. I would say the other thing about events is that you should not go into an event thinking everyone loves Cure as much as I love Cure, and everyone loves Cure exactly how I love Cure, because that's not actually true. So instead, you should go into an event thinking about your audience and thinking about how they're coming into Cure. So for instance, if you're doing like a line dance or something like that at one of your schools, don't assume that people are coming to that dance because they want to hear some long program about Cure and what they're doing to help heal kids around the world. They probably just want to dance and hang out with cute boys and girls. That's probably what it is for right now. Eventually they'll love Cure as much as you do, but that initial interaction with the organization is maybe not rooted in their love for Cure. So always just bear in mind your audience, and think the way that they think, and try to approach the event in the way that you want them to approach the event.
Yeah, that's good. I would agree with all of that. Okay, so the next question is, what is the look that students should go for in their events? And yeah, and in what ways can you be creative in that?
Yeah, so I think that the biggest thing I would encourage is for students to have clarity of purpose. And so the overall look, if you're doing a tabling event, you want to be sure that you don't just have, every single thing that you have ever collected from Cure, whether it's like a t-shirt and, the like little baseball cards and the stickers and the pins and the whatever. All of those are cool pieces, and they're meant for your use. However, what it can do is really detract from the purpose of what that table is really there for. So if you're setting up a table to try to get new members to join Cure, then make that a prominent feature of your table, and make that the thing that when people come up and they say, hey, what is this all about? You say, well, we're Cure, and today we are asking people to sign up to help us heal kids. Mm-hmm. And that becomes the one thing that you do. And that's something that we've had to get better at from our level as well, because I think when I came into this job, we were putting so much on tables, candy, random mints, other branded stuff. And what we found was that people actually were very intimidated and didn't know how to interact with the table because there wasn't that clearly identified purpose. So that's what I would say. And then I would also say to use Cure's brand. So Cure is a brand, and it behooves us to make sure that people know that we are a brand. So that means that as much as you can use our logo, please use our logo. As much as you can use our colors, please use our colors. And so that's what I would say about that. Creatively, I think that creatively you can just kind of look at some different options. One creative thing you guys are doing right now are the uppers, and painting the uppers for the Club Vet program. And so that's a creative thing that you can do to help cure and to help engage folks. So.
Yeah, and I think there are just many good ideas out there. Like, there's so many things you could do in college, and so you just don't want this to be like another lecture. And there is a lot of information about cure that you could potentially use, but don't. Like, my advice is don't just throw all the information about cure you can onto a poster board, because no one's going to read all that. Keep it simple. What we are doing is we're healing kids. And you guys are also in tough environments. Like, not all of these universities are Christian campuses. So at least my philosophy is if you're doing your job right, and if you're doing it to the glory of God, that's going to be evident no matter what you do. So yeah, just focus on, we're healing kids, and keeping it simple, keeping it concise is, I think, the way to go, and thinking from that other person's perspective. If I'm a brand new person who doesn't know anything about cure, what would you want them to know about cure? And the point is, you want them to know that we're healing kids each and every day, and it's amazing what we're doing all around the world. So yeah, keeping it simple is going to be the way to go. So,
can I just add one thing too? I would say in keeping it simple, rather than, it's easy for us to think, okay, let's just put a bunch of words on this poster board, or let's just have a lot of literature for people to explain it. It's better if you guys have that clear understanding of each and every day we're healing kids, but then I think that if you use visuals as well, so whether that's a couple of pictures on the table of kids before and after, so that people can easily reference, okay, that's what they used to look like and that's what they look like now. They can see that difference. Or if you're in a meeting or something and you're trying to, maybe it's one of your first meetings of the semester, you're trying to tell people, here's what cure does. We do have videos on the website, and I think what we're learning as a team is that we have to be so clear and concise in what we're saying in those videos. So, they're a couple minutes long. You can show that to people. But just having just that one kind of clarity and purpose, and not relying upon words on a poster or something to explain cure, but knowing that for yourself, and then having visuals to show it. So, yeah.
Yep. That'd be good. And I think, just like bring it back to the person and what Bethany said about how, there's that sign up. I think that's really important. I think I've seen a lot of tables and even at events where it's just a lot of information about cure, but there's nothing practical about, like, what can I do as a student at whatever university to get involved with this? So have your meeting times. Like, you need to plan that beforehand and be like, this is our next meeting, this is what we're going to do at our meeting, or this is our next event, this is what we're going to do at that next event. That information needs to be, like, center, because that's what people want to know. So, yeah. All right, next question is, what are common pitfalls to events, and what are some common mistakes that you've seen?
So I think some big ones would probably be not knowing the space or the venue really well, or where you're going to have the event. And so I think this has come up even for a couple of Cure U folks, where maybe they're trying to do an event off campus or something, and then that poses a bit of a concern because you have the added factor of people have to drive there now. So, if that's the case, you want to know, okay, is there enough parking for people once they get here? Or is there not enough parking? Or looking at the venue and saying, okay, is this a big enough space for our anticipated numbers to really be able to come in and be comfortable in doing that? I think some additional pitfalls would just be not thinking through the admin logistic details of the event. So not really thinking through, okay, how are we going to promote this? How are we going to keep track of who's coming? How are we going to, actually be raising money in this event? Is there going to be any program piece? Or are people just going to dance, for a few hours? And so really being sure that you are taking the time to not only look at the physical space of where the event's going to be, but to also consider, all of those logistic questions. So is this the best time of year for that event? You know, do we think that our audience will enjoy something like this? How are we going to be raising money and doing ticket sales? On and on. So, so I would say people don't always think about just how many like moving pieces and variables there are to events. And so, one example was last week I was in Kenya for the Tebow Night to Shine event, and the hospital really did a great job in so many ways on that event. But just a couple things that I don't know were necessarily thought through was it wasn't clearly communicated, okay, here are how many kids that we're going to have show up in wheelchairs. And so this is how many spots we need at tables for each of those kids. So one person thought there were 60, another person thought there were 20. Then finally someone realized there were 37 kids with wheelchairs. And so anyway, so that made it a little bit difficult because on the day of the event, we were scrambling to remove chairs and then to add chairs, you know, all that morning before people arrived in that space. So, so it's just thinking through, you know, things like that. The other thing I would say is a common pitfall about events is, again, we answered this in the first question, but is not thinking about the event from the perspective of your audience. So I have seen so many auctions fail because they just didn't think through prizes that people would actually like. So no one was betting on anything because it was like, this is not, like, I don't really want to go to the country club and play golf. Like, that's just not my generation, you know, or myself personally, you know, or there's just things like that. So I think that if you do an auction or something like that, being sure that you're like, oh, if our primary audience is college students in this auction, then I'm going to pick prizes or try to acquire prizes that people will actually enjoy. Yeah, I think I was at another one and there was like it was not cute. It was just a weird painting and I'm like, what is this? Like, who is actually going to, so I think it went for like $15 or something because, you know, people are like, I don't want that. So really thinking like, don't let it be a pitfall of everybody's going to love this because I think they're going to love this, but really trying to think from the perspective and asking those questions of folks like, hey, what would you want to see at an auction? What would you enjoy? A Chick-fil-A gift card? Yeah.
And I think sometimes that goes to like not saying no to people. Like if someone, because that happens here sometimes too, where someone is like, here, we want to give this to you. And like, you know, you can make good use of it. And it's like, you just don't say no to the person. You end up with this thing that's basically like, jump for Jesus.
Yeah, we had a girl who it was precious. She reached out, she said, I'm a fashion designer and I saw you're doing the Tebow Night to Shine and I want to make a prom dress for every, you know, kid in your hospital who's doing this. And I'm like, okay, so that's very nice and we appreciate that. But the challenge with that is we have to get them across the world in a very short amount of time because we only have, you know, these kids for maybe a week or so. So anyway, so my response to her was, hey, let's talk earlier next year and we can figure out if we can make generic costumes that people, you know, can use year over year. So anyway,
Yeah, and actually I think that's another good idea is make sure, like, if this is a really successful event and you foresee doing it year after year, then keep some of those materials. And if you are able to just use the resources of your university, then absolutely do so. So, like, I know there was a while back a chapter that wanted to do this Gaga Ball tournament, and apparently you need a lot of, like, kind of like dodgeballs. And they were going to purchase 30 dodgeballs. And I was like, what are you going to do after that event with 30 dodgeballs? Are you going to keep it in your dorm room? No, you're not. So why can't you just go to like your campus gym and be like, hey, can we borrow dodgeballs for this amount of time? So I think, I think just think through, you know, there's always a better way you can do something. And so just think it through. And
you don't have to purchase new every time.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
another common, well, something I guess me personally, I was really like a stickler on was dress rehearsals. So the type of events I did in college involved a lot of performers. Like we had a list of about just throughout the course of a year, we probably used 50 different performers and performance groups. And so for that reason, I was like, there's no way we're doing this event without a dress rehearsal. So if you're going to put on a big event with performers, absolutely, please have a dress rehearsal. And that just ironed out so many issues that, during the dress rehearsal, I was like, oh my gosh, if this happened during the event, like, how horrible would that have been? So, praise God, we had a dress rehearsal and we addressed that. Because there's so many things. It could be lighting, it could be sound, it could be your MC, it could be, like, performers being confused and not knowing where to go, and food. Like, if you're actually putting on a big event like that, please have a dress rehearsal.
Yeah, I actually love that. Do you remember we went to that event? We went to an event. Karina and I went to an event at the Hershey. Yeah, at the Hershey Theater, and there were like some cool. It was this kind of variety show night, and so there was some really
beautiful
venue, and then, how do you describe that girl? I don't know. This girl came out. We're at
which one?
The Daisy Dukes at the end.
Yeah.
So
who kept on singing?
Yeah,
she took up like half the program
for over an hour. This girl is in Daisy Dukes, like shaking her tail feather at this event for kids,
children.
And we're like, oh my gosh! I'm like, they needed a dress rehearsal. They needed a rehearsal because they could have said, "Honey, don't you dare come wearing that. It's not okay. It's not okay." So, yeah.
If you're,
Anyway, okay, sorry, I digress, but that made me think of that.
Yeah. I was definitely a stickler for dress rehearsals. I was like,
it does just help people to really know, like, exactly, this is what you're doing. I mean, for any event I do, like, where it's in a physical space, I do a moment-by-moment schedule. So quite literally down to, they get off stage, you get on stage, and so that everyone knows prior to that the transitions that have to happen, because when those transitions are clean, the event goes really well. So
and then you feel so much better when the event actually happens. You're like, this is going to plan. Everything. So you're not there panicking. And you can even have time to like think up like a backup plan or
exactly.
So, all right. So this is the last question, how do you delegate tasks?
Oh, that's a good question. So I think delegating tasks is kind of hard. So for me, I probably tend towards being a perfectionist, and I usually have an opinion about how something should look or how something should be done. And so for me, it's been a bit of a learning process to start delegating tasks to people. And so one thing that I think I've really learned is the importance of identifying what people enjoy and want to be part of. So I actually have a girl here named Bridget, and I guess Bridget's kind of my assistant. She's an events associate here at Cure and also works in donor support. But, Bridget she never wants to run an event. That's not what she wants to do. She doesn't want to read contracts and do the administrative side of things. But what she does like to do is make things look great. And so that's something that I've been able to do. So I think Karina has kind of called that the look person. And so that really is what Bridget is to me. So I say, Bridget, I want these colors, I want this feel. Come up with a recommendation of how you're going to make that happen. And so she does, and then we talk about it, and then she runs with it. And it looks great every time. So, but that trust has been built up over time of her proving to me that is what she enjoys, and of her saying, this is what I enjoy, this is what I want to do. And me saying, okay, because those are things I enjoy too, but just relinquishing that and saying, okay, for the purpose of what I have to get done, I trust you and I know you're going to do a great job. So the look person is really important. That person who can make it, make the atmosphere, the physical space be what you want. And then I think the promotional people. So, that's another thing. We just went on all these concert tours, and we have to acquire all of these volunteers, hundreds of volunteers for all of these tours. And I don't have the time and space to do that and to manage that process. And so, so what I did was I tried to develop a bit of a process, and I worked with a couple of different people on that, and then I delegated that task, and they became the promo team for these volunteers. And so I'd check in with them probably once a week. Hey, how are things going? They'd say, great, no big deal. We've got volunteers, and I would have access to their spreadsheets and things like that. But ultimately, I let them run with it. I said, hey guys, here's the plan. We're gonna push social. We're gonna, send an email to previous volunteers, etc. So the promo person is also important in delegating that task. And then I think you have, which is probably the role that I play, but the finance, an administrative person. So that is that person that constantly has that 30,000 kind of foot view. Someone said to me once, they said, the job is kind of like you're constantly riding an elevator. And I would say that perfectly describes my job in many ways. So it's my job to kind of raise to the top and look down and say, okay, here's everything that's going on to help make this event happen, and here are all of the people that are helping to do that. So it's my job to check in with them and to say, okay, how's this going? How's this going? Is this spun up yet? Is this starting to happen? But then, and when I do that, it's like I kind of come down the elevator, right? And I drill down into meeting with those individual people to make sure the tasks are working. So you need a person who is on just looking at, are we on time? Are we on budget? To make sure that this project is complete, and have we accounted for everything that we can. And then finally, I think you need that person really day of who is going to help move the program along. So, that person who is the MC who, you're constantly talking to them as the administrative person who's making sure, we're all set, we're good to go. You're talking to that MC and you're saying, okay, I need you to put out this message, or I need you to move us along this way, because, the day of the event, things can change, and, you have to be able to account for that change. And so it's vital that you have a person who is just your point person to help account for that change and to announce that to the group. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. And I think asking people, because you guys all work within a team, so I think just really knowing your team and knowing what their strengths are and what they truly enjoy doing. And I think there are certain tasks, especially at the CureU level, that everyone can do. So like promotion, I think everyone on the team can be doing promotion and should be doing promotion. And if they're not, they probably shouldn't be on the team. So yeah, I think and I think just communication is so important too. So just making sure everyone's on the same page with, or at least you are on the same page of like where everything stands. And I think the last thing I would want to add is that ultimately everyone is a volunteer. You guys are helping us out so much, and we appreciate everything you're doing. And one thing that I was just really amazed by the last time I went to UGA at their spring shag, one of the execs, Abby Cooley, she went out of her way to just say thank you to every single person who was involved. So she was kind of like the point person for Spring Shag last year. And so she was just so gifted at just like gratitude and expressing her gratitude for every single person. And so I think that is something that is so important for every single CureU chapter, because ultimately you guys are volunteering and you're doing this because you believe in the mission, and that is amazing that you guys have this trust in us, and so we really appreciate you guys, and I also want you to also really appreciate your teams. So if you see someone doing a good job, then like please thank them and just go out of your way to show gratitude. And I think that's something that honestly really helps UGA in their events. Just showing gratitude. So
yeah, because it's easy to get wrapped up in like it being stressful, or there's so many moving pieces, and I think it's easy to just lose almost the look of or the feel of being Christ-like in those moments, because you're just so stressed out, and maybe it's because something doesn't look exactly like you wanted it to look, or they're not doing exactly what you wanted them to do. And there's grace for those moments where you maybe aren't the most patient. But I think for me, one thing I'm learning is more and more when I approach events, I want my team to know that I appreciate them, that I trust them, and that I am there to back them. So, and that I am there with them in the trenches. And so, that's something where I think even, last week at the event in Kenya, they were so shocked by the fact that I didn't take a break. But in my mind, I'm thinking, no, that's not the way that I manage. I'm going to manage by being present and by being here with you. So anyway, so I know that's long-winded, but yeah, I appreciate people. And even, after the event, so I try to send thank you notes. And for those people who really spent just a ton of extra time, Bridget being one of them, I just used some personal money, not cure money, but some personal money, and I said, go get a pedicure, go take some time, and have that space. And for Tim Steffens, who he worked on all of our AV and worked very long hours, at an event that we did, I gave him and his wife a date night, and I said, I know that you guys sacrificed your family time this week. It's not lost on me, so please enjoy this date night. And so, I do think that is so important. That you really make sure your team knows how appreciated you are.
Yeah, especially as you guys being all volunteers. Like, no one is being forced to do any of this. So you're truly doing it out of what's in your heart. So yeah, just appreciate that.
Yeah, good.
All right, I think that's it.
All right, you guys have so much fun. So with each other and all that good stuff. I'm excited for you.
Yep. I hope you guys weren't bored during this video.
Okay, it'll be fine.
All right, see you guys.